Released in late 2013, the iPhone 5S marks the end of the Steve Jobs era and brought a new look and feel to the iPhone lineup, as well as a key feature in Touch ID. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're going to be talking about the iPhone 5S. Is it still worth buying in 2018? It's hard to believe this phone was already released over 4 years ago. And what's interesting is how big of a deal it really was, because it came with the infamous iOS 7 that completely changed the entire iPhone experience. It switched over from the skeuomorphic and more realistic design to the flat and stylized look of modern times. Whether or not you like the change, it's definitely hard to argue that the iPhone 5S is an integral part of what makes iPhones what they are today. So that's all good and fun, but it doesn't really help answer the question of whether or not the iPhone 5S is worth it. So let's blast through some quick specs here and come to a conclusion. The iPhone 5S shares the same general design of the iPhone 5 with an aluminum build and glass antenna bands on the back. In my opinion, this is one of the best iPhone designs ever, and it actually still lives on in the form of the iPhone SE. The key difference between the 5 and 5S is that the 5S has Touch ID, which is a huge convenience. Although it's worth mentioning that this is first generation Touch ID and is quite slow compared to newer models, but even so, it's much better than nothing. If you're interested in a comparison between the iPhone 5 and 5S, I'll leave a video link down below in the description, so make sure you go check that out. We also have a few color options with the 5S, being gold, space gray, and silver. In general, the iPhone 5S is just a really good looking phone, and it feels amazing in the hand. It is surprisingly light, even though it looks a little bit chunky, but when you actually hold it, it's quite thin and very, very light. It's actually the lightest iPhone, believe it or not. On the bottom of the phone, we of course have a lightning port as well as a headphone jack, so there's a nice feature we don't have a lot anymore. The camera on the iPhone 5S was very good for the time, but is starting to fall behind now in 2018. It has an 8 megapixel rear sensor with the ability to shoot up to 1080p at 30 frames per second. Pictures will look nice in good lighting, but it's kind of mediocre compared to any iPhone 6s or newer, but for most budget users it'll be more than enough. The selfie camera of the iPhone 5S is pretty terrible, with only 1.2 megapixels and 720p video recording. Selfies are pretty bad on the 5S, but in all honesty, for simple things like Snapchat or FaceTime or whatever, it'll be fine. Major factor of the iPhone 5S is the size. It was criticized because this was during the time when Samsung was starting to make bigger phones, which people really liked. So Apple answered this, of course, next year with the iPhone 6 in 2014. If you want to see my review on the iPhone 6, there of course will be a link down in the description below. But anyway, it is a very small phone, with only a 4-inch display that has a resolution of 640 by 1136 and pixel density of 326 pixels per inch. If you don't know what that means, don't worry, that's okay. The screen itself looks great with Apple's Retina display, and so everything will look quite crisp and clean. Biggest takeaway here, again, is the screen is small. If that's not your thing, then you're going to want to probably bump it up to an iPhone 6 in the very least. Battery life isn't great on the iPhone 5S with a relatively small 1560 milliamp battery. It's pretty bad in my experience, but it is going to vary phone to phone depending on how heavily it's been used over the years. You should get a day out of it with moderate use, but if you do a lot with it, you'll probably need to keep a charger nearby. Again, this thing is pretty old, so most used models are going to have fairly worn down batteries, so keep that in mind if you're buying used, which, I mean, if you're going to buy one, you probably are buying it used. I don't think you can find these new anymore. When it comes to technical specifications, the iPhone 5S is definitely starting to show its age with Apple's A7 chipset and 1GB of RAM. It's able to run the latest version of iOS 11 fairly decently, but it's getting slow. You'll notice quite a bit of slowdown day to day, and you know what, it isn't that bad, and it's really livable. That said, the user experience isn't anything great, but when you're buying a budget phone, you can't really expect much anyways. For basic tasks like social media or texting or email or calling or something to that extent, it runs absolutely fine. You'll probably notice some lag while gaming, but it's actually fairly livable there. You can download basically any app and runs pretty much everything new. However, it will not be receiving iOS 12 later this September, and that's kind of a big deal. Or at least it probably won't get iOS 12. It is possible, and so I'm actually going to be doing a full video discussing that tomorrow. So if you're in the future, link of course course, will be in the description down below. I'm going to talk a lot more in depth about it tomorrow, but essentially what's going to happen is iOS 12 is mostly a performance and bug fix update, supposedly. So it is possible, although not likely, that the iPhone 5S will get iOS 12. That said, I would not get your hopes up or expect anything to come of it. If you look at Apple's patterns in the past, this is the phone that's going to get booted out this year. It's too bad, but it's kind of the way things go. Don't forget, this phone is over 4 years old. That's insane for any phone to be supported that long. You don't see any Android phones being supported for 4 years. But anyway, I digress. Overall, day-to-day, the iPhone 5S is absolutely usable, and considering the price, it doesn't seem like a terrible option. You can find one on eBay.com for around $100 or so, used or refurbished, and if you check a more local site like Craigslist, you could probably find a better deal. $100 is not a lot of money, especially for a smartphone. Even if you get the most basic of smartphone plans, you're probably going to end up paying that much in about 3 to 4 months. So yeah, it's really cheap. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should buy it though. So now we come to the big question. Is the iPhone 5S actually worth buying? As we know, it's a decent phone. It still works in 2018 pretty well. Yes, it isn't the most future-proof, but right now it runs day-to-day tasks like a champ. Well, it's a tough question, not gonna lie. I don't think you should buy the iPhone 5S right now. If you have the iPhone 5S already and you're using it, that's absolutely fine. I think you're probably gonna be more than okay on the iPhone 5S for now. As I said, it's totally usable in 2018. The big thing is that it's not very future-proof. I think that you should go for the iPhone SE instead of the iPhone 5S. I have found many iPhone SEs for under $200 on eBay.com. So let's say you can find one for, let's say $200. For only $100 more off of the iPhone 5S, you are getting a phone that is way better. Why is it way better? Well, it has double the RAM, which might not mean much to you, but it's much faster. It will run iOS 12 as well as 13 for that matter, and it's going to be way better in 2019. I did a video quite a few months back on why you shouldn't buy the iPhone 5S, and I totally stand by what I said there. I think I was right. If you want to go see that, link down below, but essentially all I was saying is that the iPhone SE just is a much better value for your buck. So in my opinion, yeah, I don't think you should buy the iPhone 5S. I think the SE is a much better deal and you should go for that. The iPhone 5S is fine in 2018. It runs things pretty well. It has a okay battery. It's a nice size, good display, mediocre camera, great design, and overall it's a fine package, I guess. It's nothing great, but it's nothing terrible either. It's kind of in the middle. So if you buy the iPhone 5S, will you regret it? Probably not. You might in 2019, but right now you're absolutely fine. I think it's fair to say the iPhone 5S is worth $100. It's not like you're ripping yourself off if you buy this thing used for $100. It's still a pretty good phone. So to conclude, should you buy the iPhone 5S? Probably not, but if you do, it's honestly a fine phone, but still would recommend buying the iPhone SE over it. Alright, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Do you own a 5S? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm really curious to see where people are at with this. Make sure you go check out all those videos that I talked about. Again, links in the description. Hint, hint, hint. You find my social media down there as well, so you should go follow me over there on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe for more great content just like this. Without further ado, I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.